Thank you.
Sure.
We're not meeting upstairs. We were over here auditing in January, they put us over there. We had a hard helmet on, no, just kidding. This is a flat copy. Flat copy.
Maybe everybody can send it in here for the next 3 weeks.
I did.
Yeah. You're shooting.
We have to, we can put all that.
We could go in the jury box. Okay.
Go in the jury box. Okay. I'll move my stuff.
Just be careful. Yeah.
Morning.
Morning.
This morning.
Oh, good.
Chad's hopscotch.
Drink hopscotch. We don't flag. They're over there.
You do that with.
Oh, flags.
Yeah. Pretty good. Yeah.
Commissioner Easter's not gonna be able to.
I didn't kind of think so.
Wow. Started there.
All right, it's 9 o'clock. Let's call the Blanco County Commissioners Court to order this Tuesday, April the 22nd, 2025, and ask Ms. Waller to call the roll.
Judge Gray,
Here.
Commissioner Weir,
Here.
Commissioner Easter, Commissioner Leisman, Commissioner Riley.
Here. Please join us in the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor and Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and
Please remain standing for the invocation.
Heavenly Father, thank you for giving us the opportunity of this day. We look forward to what it brings, knowing that you will be walking it with us. Father, please guide all elected officials to make decisions that best benefit the residents and the communities of Blanco County. We pray for all first responders. May they be well, may they be safe, while they are tending to the needs of others and going about their shift. We pray for rain in the upcoming days so that it may nourish our land, our lakes, our crops, farms, and ranches. Lastly, we pray that we are safe. We pray that we are healthy. We thank you that we are free. We thank you and we pray all this in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Public comment this morning includes Mr. Kenneth Welch on item 13.
Good morning. During the recent public hearing on changes to the county's development rules and regulations, one developer dominated the discussion with their cries that Blanco County's fees are too high. They also complained that the system of fire hydrants for their Woods at Flat Rock Creek subdivision is overkill. They said that requiring such a system is a wrong interpretation of the NFPA fire code, and went on to say it's too expensive for the proposed subdivision. Item 13 on today's agenda is to discuss the proposed subdivision. I can only assume that the developer is asking for a variance for your current development rules. Your rules do not allow variance unless overall performance standards are met. NFPA standards are focused on public safety. Allowing anything less than the required fire line and hydrants required by your rules would be allowing a new subdivision with substandard fire protection system. Considering that the developer earlier complained about the cost, it is quite apparent that profitability is the driving consideration for this subdivision, and I fully understand that they are in business to make money. However, your primary consideration must be public safety. Fire hydrants are required by NFPA due to the density of housing in the subdivision. Keep in mind that the Lahaina, Hawaii fire and the more recent Palisades fire in California were both wind-driven fires that destroyed entire communities. You are very aware of fires in Blanco County over the past few years that have consumed thousands of acres. Fortunately, we have not experienced loss of life or major structure loss, but we do experience wind-driven fires, and it is unlikely that that will change in the future. Envision one of the recent fires in Blanco County approaching a fully built-out Woods at Flat Rock Creek. People are moving to Blanco County because it's beautiful and they want to get away from large cities. Very few buyers ask about the fire safety provisions when buying a home. They come expecting the basic services will be available, like fire protection. Developers are coming because they can make a lot of money by building in Blanco County. Then they move on, only to leave the community to face the future. This court unanimously approved the existing development rules in January of 2024. Do not allow the cries of a single developer to dictate safety of future residents. The current rules follow NFPA guidelines developed by fire experts across the nation. And Blanco County residents should have no less protection than what is standard. Without fire hydrants, it is inconceivable that the fire safety performance standard can be met. I oppose variances from your rules, certainly for economic benefit of the developer, and at a safety risk for future residents. Do not allow the variance and do not relax the fire safety provisions in your rules. And here's a copy for your records.
Before we move to item 1, just a quick update on the courthouse. Ms. Harrison and I and Commissioner Riley was around yesterday, and we met with the contractors, and we're going to be seeing this matter again at our guesstimate is going to be the second meeting in May for a change order. There are some additional flaws and complications to the ceiling or the roof, and we're going to have to revisit that, but we don't know what that is yet because they're refiguring some things. All right. With that said, moving to item 1 and your consideration of the minutes.
I would like to move the dispense for the reading of the minutes and Accept them as presented.
Is there a second? Second. Commissioner Riley, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed. Motion carries. Item 2, there are no line item transfers. So we'll move to item 3 in the bills.
I make a motion to ratify the bills in the amount of $5,694.49 and approve the outstanding bills in the amount of $362,029.60.
Is there a second? Second. Commissioner Riley, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed. Motion carries. Item 4, we have with us today Mr. Nickendorf to present the outside audit report.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
I see appropriately the treasurer and the auditor in the penalty box, so that's where. No, they do a good job. I'm just kidding. Or maybe that's the jury room. Maybe they're gonna indict me here. Anyway, I'm Keith Neffendorf with Neffendorf and Blocker out of Fredericksburg. We did the audit for the county. This is the year ended September 30th, 2024. As in the past, I will go through and hit the high points. And if you have any questions, you stop and ask me. Or if later, if you have some, just give us a call. All right? And also remember, under the Governmental Accounting Standards Board standards, we prepare the audit report to comply with that, along with the local government code. And therefore, under those standards, we do the 2 sets of financial statements, as I've said in the past. The exhibits A and B are the GASB 34, the business type model, where we include all your capital assets, accumulated depreciation, your liabilities for your retirement through the Texas County District Retirement System, and come up with a profit and loss just like a business would. The second set, the fund financial statements, are the C schedules. And those are the most important as far as operating the county, because those are what y'all adopt the budget and set the tax rate on, okay? That's the difference. The main thing is you have to be aware of the numbers in the GASB 34, but as far as operating the county, we use the fund financial statements. That's what the treasurer and auditor keep the records on, and that's how y'all adopt the budget and set the tax rate on, okay? And like I have in the past, instead of me sitting here and going through 80 pages of audit report, I have condensed it down to a 2-page summary where we give you a reference point, results and comments, and then comparative amounts. And of course, the big item, the first one, pages 1 through 3, is the auditor's opinion letter, in which y'all got the unqualified opinion, the clean opinion. That says the audit is in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and we have no material issues or findings. So it's a clean opinion. That's what everybody wants. That's what y'all got. Good job. As I said before, the financial statements, the first 2 exhibits, A1 and B1, they're done on that GASB 34 model. And you can see at the end of the year, your total assets for the county, including all your capital assets, were $48,426,876. Your liabilities are listed there. You list your pension liability was $269,000. The OPEB liability, that's the group term life, also through the Texas County and District Retirement System, $232,000. And your bonds payable at the end of the year were $10,345,000. So your assets minus your liabilities come up with a net position of $34,141,462, of which unrestricted was $11,604,981. So you can see that the county is in good financial shape with a net position of over 34 million and an unrestricted position of over 11 million. B1, this is the income statement for the county, and it includes the depreciation expense. So therefore, you can see the total revenues were $16,183,000. Your total expenses, including depreciation, were $12,935,000. So you had a net change positive. Net income for the year was $3,248,100. So it was another good operating year for the county. C1, the fund financial statements. These show the fund balances at the end of the year. And they're listed here by your major funds. The general fund, of course, had over 11 million. Road and bridge, 1.3 million. The capital projects was down to 184,000. And your other funds, this is your debt service funds, special revenue funds, 2,539,681. And so you could see your total fund balances were $15,098,228. And you can see the big change there was, of course, in your capital projects fund, it decreased from 5.8 million to 184,000. And that's because the year before you issued the bonds and hadn't spent most of the proceeds by the end of the year. In this fiscal year, you completed those projects and spent those funds in accordance with those bonds and certificates obligations. So that's why that's a normal situation where the 1 year you issue the bonds, the fund balance goes up. The next year you spend the money, fund balance goes down. So that was all planned. C2, the reconciliation you get from the fund financial statements to GASB 34. We list the major items there to include in your capital assets, the net amount after depreciation, 11,952,000. Current year, you had capital outlay and debt service principal payments of a little over 9 million. And then we have your adjustments for your Texas County and District Retirement System pension and the Texas County and District Retirement System OPEB group term life. So you can see also then we had depreciation expense last year of $1,624,257. Those are the major reconciling items to get you from the fund statements to GASB 34. C3, the statement of revenues and expenditures for the county. And you can see last year, the revenues, the funding sources, and the local taxpayers, fees of office and local revenue sources accounted for 95.2% of your revenues. And meanwhile, the state and federal only chipped in 4.8%. Of course, that has different variances from the prior year because we finally were spending the COVID money, the TDM monies. So that's why there was a big swing. Now it's back down to normal because normally we don't get that much money from the state or the Fed. So now the local taxpayers and the fees of office are covering the county's revenue budget. And after that, we show on the revenues and expenditures for last year. The general fund had a net increase excess of $806,315. The road and bridge, $367,992. And as I said before, the capital projects, of course, had a deficit of $5,637,949. That was due to the spending of the bonds that you had issued the year before. And your other funds, the debt service fund and special revenue funds, had a net increase of $1,303,902. And so therefore your net change in the governmental funds was a decrease of $3,459,740. And we highlight the items there. You could see that the reason for the main change there was in the prior year, you had issued bonds of $3,973,000. And this year you spent most of that money. As you can see, the capital projects expenditures were $5,534,000. The next page is also the reconciling item on C4 for get this from the fund statements to GASB 34. And you can see the major changes, of course, again, were the recording of the capital outlay and debt principal payments. That was $9,029,111, and your change in GASB 68, and your depreciation expense. Those get you from the GASB 34 to the fund financial statements. The notes to the financial statements, we highlight these notes. Note 3A, page 33. The county is required to comply with the Public Funds Investment Act in regard to the security of your deposits and investments, and all your deposits and investments complied with the Public Funds Investment Act. The other notes, 3I, J, K, L, these have to do with your debt, and under those agreements, you made all your payments in accordance with those debt service agreements. You want the detailed information on page 40, note 4A, that is the TCDRS, they provide us that disclosure in regards to your GASB 68 pension, and likewise, starting on page 46, on your GASB 75, your OPEB disclosure that has with your group term life through the Texas District Retirement System. The supplemental schedules are important on starting on Exhibit G1, page 52. This shows for your general fund last year, you had both positive variances to the budget for your revenues and expenditures. G2, page 53 for the road and bridge. Also, you had positive variances to the budget for both your revenues and expenditures. G3, the debt service fund. You had a slight negative variance on the budget, but the expenditures were positive to the budget. G4 and G5, additional disclosures required under the Texas County District Retirement System pension plan. As you can see, under that, the county share of your liability was $269,291. So you can see your percentage funded was 98%. And that was actually increased as your liability went down a little bit from the prior year. And under the GASB 75, the county share of the OPEB liability for your group term life. And remember, this thing is not funded. It's just done on a pay-as-you-go method. And so they're allocated, your share of that liability was $232,825. And it's only 5.45% funded. So what happens there is each month the treasurer remits the payment to the TCDRS, and a portion of that is applied to that group term life. And so it's done as a pay-as-you-go method. The last section is, in addition to our regular audit, we had to test internal controls used for financial reporting in compliance with laws, contracts, and grants. And we are happy to report there were no material weaknesses in internal control. There were no instances of non-compliance. In the prior year findings we had noted on the recording of retainage payable, those have been corrected. And then finally, in the back of your book, you also have the letter to those charged with governance, where we, the independent auditor, have provided you, the governing body, the judge and commissioners for the county, those items that are listed in that letter, with which all of them we complied with, and there were no additional disclosures or material weaknesses to report to y'all. And of course, we do have one recommendation on the payroll account, payroll clearing bank reconciliation. There were some outstanding items at the end of the year that should have been cleared, and they were adjusted and cleared in the next fiscal year. And that's about it. It's a good, clean audit. The county is in good financial shape, and as always, we always appreciate the cooperation of the treasurer, auditor, and the rest of the offices. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Can you look at page 10,
Okay,
very bottom?
yes, sir.
Despite all of the projects and things that the court has undertaken, I look, we retired over $1 million in debt between 23 and 24.
That's correct.
In fact, like $1.3 million maybe.
That's correct.
So we're going in the right direction.
Exactly. Yeah, I looked over the last 3 years, your capital assets have jumped up 16 million, and overall your debt has decreased. So good job.
Which is interesting because the
your
capital asset increases were financed mostly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, and plus, you know, remember you got some of that COVID TVNM monies. We use that, so we got a good boost there on a lot of those capital projects, which was a smart move.
When you, if you do the audit this coming year, the court has a line, actually a couple of line items that are in the general operating fund,
Mm-hmm.
in non-departmental, And they are, one is pretty clearly earmarked, pretty clearly identified, the other not so clearly identified, but they both are earmarked for the project across the street. When you all do your auditing and your magic, will, even though those aren't, bond money
Right.
or some other kind of money, will they be considered in the reports as a capital contribution?
Right. Mhm. Yep. In fact, probably, but normally what most people do on those capital projects, when you have substantial capital projects, instead of budgeting it in the general fund, they establish a capital projects fund and they budget in the capital projects fund. And you just transfer in from the general fund to that capital projects. That way, it's a easier, straightforward accounting. You can account for the projects easier.
Well,
Because you don't have to have, in governmental accounting world, you don't have to have specifically a debt or a bond issue to account for it in the capital projects fund. If you're, like y'all are doing, is paying for it yourselves, you can still account for the project in the capital projects fund. And that way you're not blowing up that general fund budget.
well, it's possible that we'll be asking Ms. Swift to do that anyway, because it's not a certainty, but it won't surprise me that we're not able to spend all the money currently earmarked for the project in this fiscal year. So things are kind of slow. And so it'd be good to roll that money into the special fund probably.
Yeah, that's why a lot of governments do that. Even if they're using their own money to fund capital projects, is they want to keep it in a separate fund, and therefore they can control better and see what the actual cost of the project is. And that way you can budget it,
It's like
estimate, yeah, right off the bat.
It's like when I go to Vegas.
Right.
I put money for Monday in an envelope.
Right, yeah. Then you dole it out, yeah. Yeah, it's just a cleaner accounting to handle it all through a capital projects fund. And that way it eliminates big swings in your general fund budget. Because obviously you have a $3 million project, that's going to be a substantial amount of dollars in the general fund budget, which we feel always is better to go in a capital projects fund.
I'm sorry to be repetitious, but I want to make sure. You said we have a clean audit, a good audit. Is it any worse than the last few years, or is it as good as the last few years?
Well, actually, it was better. Remember the prior year, we had the single audit for the feds and all that money, so we had a couple of material weaknesses there. So they were corrected.
So we're still on your A list.
Correct.
Commissioners?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the report from the outside auditor for FY year ending September 30th, 2020.
Is there a second? Riley, discussion. All in favor, say aye. And opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. You always do us a great job.
All right, we appreciate it. Thank you all. And good luck.
The next item is discussing Mental Health Awareness Month. Do we have anybody here? I thought we might.
Good morning.
Good morning. And you are?
My name is Laura Sandoval. I'm the clinic director for Gillespie and Blanco counties with MHDD.
With MHDD?
Yes.
Can you possibly tilt that microphone?
Is it on?
It's not on.
Oh, it's not on.
Well, you can tilt it all you want then.
Okay.
You're still gonna have to speak louder.
I'll try to be louder. So like I said, my name is Laura Sandoval. I'm the clinic director for Blanco County with Hill Country MHDD Centers. So my team and I are honored to represent Hill Country MHDD Centers, a local mental health authority. We serve 19 counties in the state of Texas, Hill Country area. We're dedicated to enhance the well-being of individuals within our communities We're one of 39 agencies delivering crucial mental health and developmental disability services across Texas. And we actually serve a region spanning approximately 24,000 square miles, home to about 750,000 people within the Hill Country area. So we're here to emphasize the importance of proclaiming May as Mental Health Awareness Month. This designation raises awareness, reduces stigma, and fosters understanding of mental health issues, empowering individuals to seek help and building supported communities. So we want to thank the Commissioners Court for allowing us to highlight this crucial role of mental health awareness. Together, we can create healthier, more inclusive communities. We would like to also invite you to an open house that we will have actually next Tuesday, April 29th, from 11 to 1. So it will be a spring open house where we feature the staff that we have dedicated for Blanco County. And that way we can continue those efforts to bridge the gap to access to services.
Who did you bring with you today?
Do y'all want to stand up?
Adrienne Nolan, peer support specialist for Blanco County. And moving administrative specialist for Blanco County. Mental health specialist, Sonia Torres, and I'll be embedded with rest of the illness.
So you actually concentrate in Blanco County?
Yes, they're here full time.
Unless you're here at Johnson City full time, and Sonia actually goes with Wes and Megan on crisis interventions calls.
Okay. Oh, so you're that new program?
Yes, yes.
Well, I want to stop and take a minute so everybody's aware that MHTD funded a new program, and MHTD, I say we because I'm kind of part of MHTD, inserted you into our community paramedic program. And so when Wes or Megan go out on a call and it involves a mental health crisis, you're pretty instrumental, I think, right?
Yes.
That's your plan.
Yes.
And then, of course, you must work with Constable Busey as well. So, yeah.
She's still training, but we are very excited to have her.
Great.
Yeah, she actually helped build the MCOT team in Kerrville back in the day.
And for those that don't know, an MCOT is a
Mobile crisis outreach team, so they respond to crisis services in the community.
and that's a big deal. Okay. Commissioners, anyone?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the proclamation declaring May 2025 as the Mental Health Awareness Month in Blanco County.
Is there a second?
Sorry.
Commissioner Riley, discussion. All in favor, say aye. And opposed? Motion carries. Thank y'all so much for attending today.
Thank you, and I have flyers to our open house if y'all want to take them.
Yeah, we'll be sure to get them distributed. Commissioners, item 6 on your agenda is the potential reappointment of Susan Ham for another 2-year period beginning April 22nd, 2025 and ending April 21st, 2027 to the Texas Housing Foundation. This will be her final appointment, and the court has 2 years to look around and recruit a new representative for Blanco County on that board. So so that's the plan anyway, and that's the desire is for Ms. Ham to conclude her service, which has been a long time. Long before I was here. So I'm asking that you consider reappointing her to this final term before we transition.
I make a motion to approve the resolution for the renewal of the Texas Housing Foundation Board member Susan Ham for a 2-year period beginning April 22nd, 2025, and ending April 21st, 2027.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Riley, discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Ham, for your service.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, this is an odd one that I put in. There's nothing for the commissioners report to do that I know of, and it's not a, I don't really know what we could do possibly other than maybe putting it on our website, and, you know, hopefully maybe the newspaper, since they cover commissioners court so often, they can pick it up. But essentially, it was a letter sent to me that, from the Alamo Trust, that is encouraging ranchers and farmers to designate a portion of their proceeds at auction to the Alamo Preservation Project. And they were, and like I said, I saw this letter and thought, well, what can I do to get it out there in the public? And the first thing I can do is get it to commissioners, because commissioners see so many people. And then secondly, maybe the newspaper would pick it up. And thirdly, maybe Ms. Harrison will put it on our website. But beyond that, I really don't know. And then, of course, I guess on a personal level, I can, next time I drive through the auction in Fredericksburg or Mason, maybe I should do something about it. But short of that, unless you all have other ideas, that's all I can say on this. Anybody have any questions or thoughts? All right. Then number 8 is accepting a donation of a desk and a filing cabinet from Miss Ashby. And she's here, so if you have questions, we should ask her, because I really don't know much about this.
I'll make a motion to accept the donation of the desk and the filing cabinet from Kim Ashby.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Weir, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, appointment of a deputy constable. And Constable Busey, if you want to come for just a second. As I understand it, what we want to do is what we're asking the court to do is appoint the position of deputy constable as the rabies control officer in Blanco County. And the reason we want to do it that way is because you're going to divide the function of among a couple of your officers.
That's correct. That'll just fall in with normal routine duties. It also falls in with some animal cruelty and livestock cruelty cases we've been working down south. So it's something they'll work in with
And
assigned duties.
And full disclosure is we trapped you or tricked you or coerced you into even taking this on because it has been the Johnson City Chief of Police probably for the last 2 or 3 chiefs, and then it was an officer after that. And anyway, it's hard to find somebody that wants to be designated for the entire county to do rabies control. And you were willing, I guess?
We'll go with willing.
We'll call it that.
Okay.
Didn't object loud enough.
That's right. Yeah.
Does it affect your budget anyway?
Hard to say at this time. We'll just be getting our feet wet into this. That can be a discussion based on the number of cases and things such as that. We'll of course be tracking time, case, and everything else, just like we do with any other call.
So does anyone care to move to appoint the
I'll move to appoint the appointment of Deputy Constable Precinct 4 as local rabies control authority of Blanco County.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Weir, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Now for a fun one, the vending machines at the North Annex. I might defer to Ms. Ashby on this, if she can tell us more. Well, let's see if I can frame this right. The state statutes, possibly even all the way to the Constitution, say things along the lines of government employees should not be able to use government resources for their own personal benefit. The way there are some minor exceptions to that. The one that always comes to mind is Commissioner Weir, some of you others that have done some work on private property, doing some blading, but it was actually not for the benefit of the private property, but for our benefit to keep our roads and our ditches in good shape. And in those cases, that's legal because there's trade-off and the government actually is getting a benefit out of it. In this one, we have an additional issue of not only does the state law talk about it, but so does our personnel policy that we prohibit Blanco County employees from conducting business basically with Blanco County resources. In this case, the resource would be the building and the plug over in the other, across the walkway of the North Annex. And that's clearly an issue because the deputy constable that is willing and offering and wants to do this would do it with the idea of making money eventually, maybe. My own personal view, and I'm going to just leave this alone, but my personal view is we compel 200 and 300 people at a time to come here from around Blanco County and to sit back there. Okay, maybe 100, 150 at a time, but it's 200 and 300 sometimes even in a given week to come here under orders, basically with the idea of possibly serving on a jury. We have people coming here to vote. We have people coming here for marriage licenses and all other kinds of businesses with Ms. Wallow. And we always have people coming here from Ms. Fee's office and on and on and on. And I personally don't feel them, but I know a lot of people in this room field a lot of questions about, is there any place I can get a snack or a drink or something? Particularly for the jurors, because they're here sometimes all day, sometimes all week. But you know, even somebody who might be diabetic, it might be an actual serious issue that it would be nice to have something in the box. So for me, the public benefit outweighs the issue of Deputy Constable Chase possibly making a little money off a vending machine. But that's me, and far outweighs it for me. So I wouldn't have a problem with a variance, but what I don't want to do is, you know, I've heard other ideas, just so you know, in the 2 weeks since we last met. It's like, well, what if he put it in a LLC, or what if he did it in his cousin's name, or what if this, what if that? I don't want any subterfuges or anything that's, I don't want to be a part of any kind of subterfuge or something that doesn't look straight up. So for me, it's a simple straight up question of, do we want to do this for the public benefit and make an exception in this case, because can't find another soul that wants to do this. And if you've got an employee in your group that wants to do this, I'm wide open to the idea of making it a competition. But so far, that has not worked out. And that's been, we can attest that that's been the case for maybe 10 years, certainly 7 or 8 years. I'll shut up.
So Judge, if it was in the interest of the community, would the county be interested in purchasing the machines and using the maintenance department to fill the machines?
I would not, because the maintenance department is about stretched out right now. And I don't think this was ever part of the presentation when we managed to attract Melinda to supervising that department. And by the way, I don't think anybody would argue that that has turned into quite a success, even a surprising success. So I don't really want to rock that boat, number one. Number two, I think there's just as big, I think, Kim, there's just as big of a prohibition on a county buying food and drinks. And as there is a county employee.
Well, the county's not gonna be supplying the food to the public, they're gonna be making the public pay for it, so it's not. I don't see that as the same prohibition. But as far as the employee doing it, I think the employee handbook is, the spirit of it is, you're not supposed to be being paid by the county at county time to do your own business.
Right, and I believe the proposal clarified that wouldn't be the case.
Correct. So he would be doing it either before he goes on duty or after he goes off duty. So he wouldn't be paid during county time. The one recommendation that I talked to you about was maybe putting it out for a bid, so say you really have made every single effort possible, we can't find anybody, and this isn't a to the public, he's not gonna be getting rich off of it.
I'm okay with that, I guess, if you can help us. I mean, that'll be some expense because we'll have to advertise it.
Yes.
And go through that process. I'm okay with that. I think the reason that Ms. Harrison and I frown about that is because she personally has recruited everybody from PEC to companies in San Antonio and Austin and elsewhere, and just nobody is interested in servicing this particular location for some reason. But I'm good with, I'm kind of not good with the idea of spending county money to verify what we think we already know, but in order to comply with everybody's rules and regulations and everybody's sense of ethics, I'm fine with the idea if we want to advertise for it.
I'll make a motion to authorize the county judge to advertise the bid for use of installation of vending machines in county courthouse annex.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Weir, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, motion carries. Item 11, bids for the metal replacement on the carport style roofs.
So basically, this is the carports there at the LEC, got hail damage in 2024, and this is the process to go through to meet FEMA's requirements, so.
There's two now? Okay.
You know the measurements of those carports on top of your head?
No.
It's for the car parking awning and the cover over the HVACs. So this bid here is from Buckhorn Roofing. The carport parking awnings, $12,650, and the HVAC awning, $5,500, for a total of $18,150. This bid is from Redemption Roofing and General Contracting, with a total of $18,332.80.
How much?
$18,332.80.
Or $50.
Commissioner Weir, were the carports installed by the people that did a lot of from Bull Verde?
Yes, sir.
That did a lot of the south Blanco yard
Yes, sir.
work?
Yes, sir.
Why wouldn't they come back why wouldn't they want to come back and do their own roofs?
Well, because they're probably putting them up, they're probably up to their ears putting them up new anyway. I don't know why they wouldn't. I don't know why they didn't bid on this, otherwise they might not have seen it. But the company that built that and installed it was out of Center, Texas. So it might not be feasible for them to come back and repair it. But they waited till they had 2 or 3 projects and they came out of Center and did them all and went back.
So these two bids are pretty darn close.
Yeah.
Is there any reason I could hope that, like, the company that built them could do it a lot cheaper?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, they're all pretty much, they're using 26 gauge, you know, and I bet you, if they did bid on it, it'd be fairly close. This stuff has gone up. It's gone up quite a bit this last year.
Do you have a recommendation?
Between the two, flip a coin maybe, but I mean, they're so close to each other and they're both bidding the 26 gauge, same material, same trim. You might want to see who can get to it quicker, if that's a factor. These guys might not be able to get to it for 6 or 8 months. I don't know.
It's been since a year ago anyways.
Yeah, wait till the next hill.
Yeah. So I make a motion to use the lower bid of $18,150 and award the bid to Buckhorn Roofing,
Where were they from?
Lovelady, Texas.
Where's that?
So
Lovelady, did you say Lovelady?
That's East Texas.
Isn't
East Texas.
Isn't that up? And that's Lovelace. Never mind.
so the other one was out of Spring, Texas. That's your two options.
Is there a second?
I'll say,
Commissioner Weir, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Item 12, replat.
So this is a replat that is unique, of course, crosses the Blanco-Burnett County line. This is a 10-acre tract that they're kind of divided into 2 smaller tracts. The unfortunate issue in this scenario is they're trying to go for a 6-acre tract and a 4-acre tract. In our rules and regulations, it does not allow for a 4-acre tract to have a well and a septic on it. However, this lot is divided by Blanco and Burnett County. In Burnett County, the rule is 1 acre. So with that being said, there is a deal on the plat that no septic system will be allowed on portion lot 6A1 since the lot size is smaller than 5 acres. They can put the septic on the Burnett County side and they can appease the rules. I talked to Burnett County Herb and they've already approved this. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the replat of lot 6A in the Oaks and Spicewood subdivisions, new lots to be run as 6A1 and 6A2.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Riley, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Item 13.
This is a whole nother matter. So this one here is a section of land at 305 acres. So, this developer, we all know, and he is proposing a public water system and private sewage systems to create 3-acre tracts.
3 to 5.
3 to 5 acre tracts. So, it's up here on the screen for people in the audience to see, and I know it's kind of hard to see for those. But there's a few things that we have to talk about in reference to this. David, you want to start out?
I'll let you start.
Okay, so the biggest question in my book, in our rules and regulations, under section 300, what is it on? 340 the fire suppression. Okay, so in our rules, it says that if you have a PCQ approved water system, then you're supposed to have fire hydrants. And y'all come back with pretty much a variance to exclude the fire suppression.
Well, we have a variance there, but we still believe that we're exempt under the current regs based on what the NFPA 1 states, that fire hydrants are not required in the regs if the water distribution system cannot provide a fire flow exceeding 500 gallons a minute at 20 PSI. And that is a TCEQ approved system. Or impractical as the next item that lists is, I guess, there are certain, I've done fire hydrants in other communities in the past, but it was all in the areas where tied into a city line, and they were still acreage tracts, the smallest being an acre. So acre in size, half acre to 1 acre, but we're tapped into the city line. Of course, they had the big tower and all that. But to get a TCEQ approved system, which we have, everything's been submitted. We're expecting a confirmation and approval back pretty soon. We believe that we're still exempt under that. But we still plan on doing the fire suppression tank up front.
Well, I've got a series of questions, so I
Yes, sir.
would like some time and opportunity. And maybe Mr. Keever can help me a little bit. So, generally speaking, have you ever seen fire hydrants in a rural subdivision outside of city limits on large lots, larger than 1 acre?
No, sir.
Have you ever built one?
No, sir.
Do you, do you ever go check out your competition, see what other developers are doing?
Often, yes, sir.
Have you ever seen one?
No, sir.
Now, is it true that the NFPA and the IFC standards are guidelines? That they don't become law until an entity adopts them?
That'd be a Marcus question there.
Would you argue with me if I told you that's the case?
Yeah, I don't know the answer.
And so we have adopted them in 300.100. When we say, 110, when we say developments with TCEQ approved public water systems shall be equipped with fire hydrants to comply with NFP 1, right?
Yes, sir.
But NFPA 1 almost always applies to places like Johnson City, right? Cities.
Yes.
And NFPA 1142 actually are what apply to rural subdivisions, right? And those usually talk in terms, NFPA 1142 is 1148, I forget, talks in terms of you shouldn't even be, even if you want to put fire hydrants in, you probably shouldn't. No, you should not, if in fact your system won't sustain fire hydrants.
Right.
And isn't it pretty much the case that a rural system like you all have built, or that you all have watched your competitors build, doesn't put in fire hydrants because they can't sustain the flow?
Right.
And it would be a misrepresentation to the buyers and a misrepresentation to the firefighters that they're gonna roll up to that plug and it's gonna provide 250 gallons per minute for 2 hours at 20 PSI.
500.
We could
That's a
argue about,
minimum.
we could argue about that, but either way.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And is it true that, that where NFPA 1 comes into place and where fire hydrants are required and where, for public water systems, there generally is an elevated water supply? Oh, like the water tower over here in Johnson City, or in Blanco, or in every other city I've ever seen. And the reason for that is because that's how you have to have virtually almost, unless you're gonna have pumps the size that they pump seawater out of Corpus Christi, you virtually have to have an elevated water supply in order to ensure you're gonna have the proper pressure so the firefighters can pull water out of the plug. Yes?
Yes.
So, and isn't that what happened in California? Isn't that part of, there's a lot of things that happened in California, but isn't part of the problem that they would roll up to the fire plugs, open them up and didn't have water to actually put out the fire. So a lot of good it did to have fire plugs up in the hills. And would you agree that the only rural areas that have fire plugs are places that have very, very large investments? I think Beverly Hills, but in a rural setting with multi-million-dollar homes, and they can afford to build a water. If they want to, and to have fire building.
No, sir.
Are you planning on multi-million-dollar mansions?
No, sir.
What are you planning?
What's our minimum size?
2,400 square feet and larger.
So most public water supplies, the goal is 40 to 60 PSI at shower heads, at your sink, your kitchen sink, whatever. And so, you know, for somebody like me that's not an engineer, not a specialist, I'm going, well, heck, that sounds like you got plenty of pressure for fire hydrants, but it doesn't translate, does it? It's not the same thing. And in fact, it won't function for a fire hydrant just because you meet the 40 to 60 standard for home areas. So, and isn't it also true that TCEQ has about 5 or 6 different goals that they go by for when they're regulated? By the way, this public water supply that you're doing, how's that going to work? You're going to drill how many wells? 1 well.
It's already been drilled and tested.
And it's going to supply the water for everybody.
Yes, sir.
Who operates it?
Trinity Oaks water system right across the road from us. They're going to be.
And they'll be
operating.
regulated.
Mhm.
And TCEQ regulates water quality,
Sampling.
management, even flow as to households. But TCEQ states pretty much right in their website that fire control is not their purview, right?
Correct.
So when they sanction a public water supply, it has nothing really to do with fire control. True?
Correct.
So it is NFPA 1142. And I think that's what that's what all rule. By the way, what I asked you about, and what we're discussing about 3 acre, 4 acre, 5 acre subdivisions in rural areas. That's true not just in Texas, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm guessing that you know what goes on in your industry. And that's true pretty much everywhere, isn't it?
We've done projects all over the country. Right now, currently, we have them in Maryland and Alabama and all that.
And it's just not feasible to do
Correct.
fire hydrants in rural, large tract
Correct.
subdivisions. And that's why NFPA 1142 explicitly discourages fire hydrants, because you're setting up false hopes. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever seen a water tower in a subdivision? Just a private subdivision, or rural subdivision,
A tower? No, sir.
or elevated water storage?
Nothing elevated.
So there's some options that the industry says you should use. They talk about what they call a dry hydrant. And I think California has those, and that would have been great if their reservoirs had water in them. But as I understand a dry hydrant, it's a fire hydrant just like you'd see anywhere else. And it's hooked to a hard pipe that goes to a reservoir. And then that has a screened off entrance or suction
To
area.
prohibit soot from coming into the system.
And the fire truck sucks water up through that dry hydrant, yes. And then, if you don't do that, and we don't have a lot of reservoirs here, but if you don't do that, you can put in water storage tanks. Unfortunately, seems like the statute only provides for small ones. I think Fredericksburg has gone to the max, Gillespie County, and they're at the 5,000 gallon one. And this proposed subdivision you're gonna put in, you're willing to commit on paper to what?
31,000 gallons, which we've done in approximately 12 to 13 other projects in and around the area.
You might need several in Blanco County as well.
I think my math is 250 gallons a minute for 2 hours is 30,000 gallons. So essentially you're providing the amount of water that could be used. The only difference is the way it gets used is tenders pull up, suck it up, or fire engines or whatever, pull up, suck it up out of the tank and then go to the fire in the neighborhood.
In the neighborhood or in the county?
Yeah, that's the other thing. You have this habit of not putting your water storage tanks behind the gates.
Correct.
You put them outside the gates.
We want everybody to use the water. It needs it.
Can I mention, do y'all also, with your residents there, with their rainwater collection, y'all encourage them to have that standard flange?
Yes.
We do.
And some of these, personal water systems are 30,000 plus. So if you have, let's just guess 5 in that area and yours, and they have that standard flange, then you can rely on that also, is that correct?
Correct.
In my community alone there at the Vistas at Round Mountain, I think there's 4 tanks. Then, and my tank also has the attachment that the volunteer fire department can go up and hook up to. But with those 4 tanks, there's 120,000 gallons that they could use. So
Same with swimming pools.
same as the swimming pools, because a lot of other counties and stuff or volunteer fire departments, they don't like the dry hydrants because they connect their system up to it to pull out, and they do pull a lot of soot, sand, dirt into their system, and then all of a sudden they have issues with their system and their trucks.
Did you know there's a discussion? There's a discussion about daisy chaining swimming pools to a dry hydrant. It would require some certain valving, but basically your swimming pool in your neighborhood and all the swimming pools up and down in your neighborhood could be strung together and hooked up to a dry hydrant and used. And the water, of course, is pretty clean. You still got to have screens because you're gonna want to suck up somebody's pool toy. But
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
We've always, John Casey, who has where we get all our tanks from, he's a personal friend of mine right outside of Round Mountain. We've always discussed about having a system to where, there's multiple pools in my project. We have multiple tanks. We have multiple communities that have the 31,000 gallon tank outside the fence where the county can use the volunteer fire department. To have a system where I think there's always a lack of communication, like an app where they could, the president of the Round Mountain Fire Department lives in our subdivision as well, where they could go to an app and go, click on that app and it pulls up. If there's a fire over in this area, they could go, okay, there's there's a pool and there's also a 31,000 gallon tank at Davy Roberts' house. This is the gate code. Bam, they can get in and fill up and go because they've already got a sign release that they can do that. I think that would be very, very beneficial to the county if instead of having, let's just say like the tiny home subdivision. The tiny home subdivision catches on fire. Right now, the regs are what? A 10,000 gallon tank or a 5,000 gallon tank. It's not much, but they could go and they could have 1 million gallons nearby where they could go and access to put out the fire at different locations nearby. I think that's a great thing to think about.
So Wilson County requires 30,000 gallons and even up to 50,000 gallons if it's larger than 50 homes. How do they do that?
I put 2 tanks out there.
No. How do they legally require that? They just do it and wait till somebody.
I think they just make up a number, I guess, kind of like the.
Well, I mean, they're not the only ones. San Mark, Hayes County does some different things. There's a lot of counties that do.
Well, how did you guys come up with a 10,000 gallon tank or a 5,000 up to a certain amount for tiny homes?
Because that's in the that's in the local government code. It talks about 2,500 gallons for this and 5,000 for that.
Okay.
So a lot of my questions for you are not about this subdivision today. They're about Blanco County, because I can't find this language that I read to you in another county's regulations right now. This blanket concept that if it's a public water supply approved by TCEQ, you must have fire hydrants.
I can't find it either.
Now, we got the basis from our regulations from Kendall County, and they may have at one time had that, but I can't find it in Kendall County anymore. Do you know of another county that has this regulation like this?
No, sir. The only thing I think I've seen it before when it was high density.
Well, and that's the thing, isn't it? If we're gonna stick to this, aren't we driving developers to doing less than 1 acre lot subdivisions? Because don't you have to have high density in order to justify the expense of a fire hydrant fire suppression system?
And we would love to do certain tracks that are feasible to do 1 acre tracks would be great. Instead of having, 70 lots or whatever, you could have 200. But in this area and what we've, I've been here now for 13 years, 14 years now. And it's, people are getting out of the city because they want some space. They want some acreage. And we kind of stay away from that high density stuff.
I understand. And a lot of us appreciate it. What I'm saying is, if you really, really want to have fire hydrants, every 500 to 1,000 feet is required by the NFPA, 300 feet in commercial. You have to spend the money. You're going to have to have an elevated water supply. You're going to have 8-inch water mains or bigger, et cetera, et cetera. If you're going to do all that, you're not going to do all that unless it's a lot smaller lot.
Correct.
100%.
So it's almost as if we're driving developers to be more dense.
It becomes an incentive to them. I mean, because the infrastructure's there. Why not take advantage of it? That's what's happening in other cities very close to us and other outside the city, like such as Dripping Springs, right outside the city limits. You see these big subdivisions that are going in there, and it's a different type of developer, but they're small, 3rd acre tracts. The only one I can think of in Blanco County is Rock and J. And we're talking about 1/10 of an acre size. So it's pretty dense.
Well, that's when you bring in the big home builders that'll come in and start taking down lots. And it's usually like a tract home community. Ours is all custom homes and stuff. as you drive around and look at our projects, there'd be a really nice house and there might be a smaller house nearby, someone that's, from the city, coming out of Houston or wherever. But, you guys are on point with those comments.
Yeah. I've sort of beat my fire suppression drum to death. I feel, let me ask you, what do you think of language when the court ever gets around to doing some changes to the subdivision regulations to say something along the lines of fire hydrants shall only be required where a public water system capable of delivering fire flow is available?
I ask why it's even in the county regs when you're asking the state to design the water system. If they're designing the water system, if this is a state statute, then why isn't it in their design? They're requiring the county to mandate it or whatever. It should be part of the design if it's supposed to be there. And if they have the proper flow and they have to, then do it then. But the state, because we lose any control over it other than that. Right?
I'm not sure the state designs your system, right? Don't they just?
No,
We design it and send it to them.
Okay, with their guidelines.
Correct.
So wouldn't these guidelines be in their design?
The county guidelines or the state guidelines?
No, the fire hydrants.
But what,
Because, as I said earlier, TCEQ is not in the fire suppression business.
Right.
They're in water quality and life.
I mean, one thing to consider is, just about every time we come to commissioner's court, the big hot button is water. And I think it's important to note that doing a central system out there to provide water where people are paying by the gallon, they're not going to use as much water if they had a well, period. So you would hate to set forth regulations that are too restrictive where people won't even entertain doing the water system because it doesn't make sense for them to do that. And I think to conserve water, I think it's the best route for the county.
my question is too, also just a hypothetical, if a developer comes in and wants to do a central water system, but he's gonna do all 10-acre tracts. Maybe he's got one spot that has good water and over here, there might not be water back in this area in the hills or whatever. Under the regs, would he still be required to have fire hydrants on a 10-acre subdivision throughout?
Yes,
He would,
yes.
I know.
Yeah, right.
And that, to us, doesn't seem practical, because you might have a 10-acre tract that might have 1,000 foot of frontage and he might have 2 fire hydrants on his tract.
It can be worse than that depending on how this tract is shaped and where the house is.
Exactly. Maybe it's a curve. We've got 10-acre tracts that have 1,300 feet on them sometimes, depending on the topo.
Well, I think we need to also address, there's some other deficiencies that, or maybe deficiency is the wrong word, but question marks that we should go over. And I don't want to beat the fire suppression to death. That'll be an issue that I guess we'll decide. But I think you all have a problem with road designation.
I'd like to just finish this with you. So, first off, do you have any of the facilities built, any of your infrastructure built? Water lines, you got water lines, you got any of that built? No. So there's no facilities on place, so you could technically build a power plant if built right. So you do have the capabilities of putting in what you need to put in to make this work.
We get approval from
don't want to,
TC.
that's
We get
understandable.
approval from
When you
TCEQ.
talk about water availability, you have about 55,000 gallons of water available on that project, right? You got a 25,000 gallon drinking water and another 31,000 gallon fire suppression. So you've got sufficient water to make this work. So you're just refusing to go that way. And that's when you become a commissioner, they teach you, first thing they teach you gotta count to 3. If you can't count to 3, then you're not gonna get what needs to go out through. So that's understandable. But with that being said, why don't you just increase your lots to 5 acres? Then you won't have this whole issue
And do wells?
in new wells. You'll have
'Cause Chris,
50 lots as opposed to 75 lots, so you have 50 homes as opposed to 75 homes.
Chris, we believe that water conservation is very important to Blanco County.
And we're putting 50 compared to 75. 50
One well
residents.
versus 50.
50 residents compared to 75 residents,
But you got
which is more water.
you got one well versus 50.
Doesn't matter, you're still drawing on the same off.
So I have a quick question. We have, Ron is here. I mean, the pump that you can put in an individual well is 17.5 gallons a minute. If it goes more than that, it goes to like a commercial, correct? So you could pump, if they dug a pond, and there's some pond areas on there, a property owner could go dig a pond or have the pond that's existing there and pump 17.5 gallons a minute into that pond, which is enough water from one individual, if he wants to feed his fish or whatever, ducks or whatever, that would be more water than the entire subdivision, entire built-out subdivision using water for their household. That to us is not water conservation.
Do you have a pond on your place?
Yes, I did.
Do you feel it wasn't well?
I've done it in the past.
So you're wasting the water.
No, I don't do it all the time, but I've put water in there, but all the water that comes off of my house goes down a drainage system, goes into a 4-inch line, goes into a 6-inch line, and then goes out into the pond. Now, the house, my game room and the barn, all of that water that comes off of that goes into my 31,000 gallon tank that goes to my house and has the system where the fire department can go and hook up to it if they need to fight a fire. So I have rainwater, okay?
Right.
But I see where you're going, but I think what I'm doing is conserving water as well.
And I hope that every one of these people put in rainwater systems. I hope that they.
We promote that. We promote that.
So, but anyway, so I guess my next question is for the fire marshal. Matt, what is your opinion in this scenario?
So first, the comparisons are, in my opinion, not 100% accurate. So it's creating some gray area and some voids. Elevation doesn't necessarily mean suppression for GPM for hydrants. There's tanks, there's booster pumps, everything else that could supply a system. Comes down to cost and economic hardship.
Can you name one?
Garrison Brothers, not a subdivision, but it's as big as a subdivision. It has 6-inch fire lines, hydrants. Every building's fully suppressed. It's not an elevated tank, it's large storage tanks with huge booster pumps. We've got millions of dollars.
And it's commercial. Right?
It's commercial. Rock and J is hydrant in the backside on the newer side of development. They are supplied by Rancho de Lago Water Company. So I don't personally know their infrastructure.
Because Rock and J started out as small.
As small.
1/8 of an acre.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Tiny lots, yes.
There's no 3-acre lots.
There's nothing barely over an acre in that subdivision, I believe. And just, I don't want to get false hope either. So the reason we have suppression tanks in subdivisions is more or less for peace of mind and allow firefighters to fill for more or less grass fires. Those tanks won't do any good for an actual house fire in a subdivision. We asked them to supply a 2.5 to 10-inch connection on the bottom of their tank. A fire truck cannot pull fast enough out of that connection for a tender an engine to fight a house fire. So those tanks are strictly there for peace of mind and to help with large vegetation fires in the area, to slow build trucks and brush trucks. So if we're talking about structure protection and saving houses, that's why this was put in the section. On their same point, the system they designed doesn't supply that because that's how their system is designed based on the homes they have and what it needed to supply. So in my opinion, it's hard. It's a lot of money to do certain things. Any system, if the water's there, can be developed to meet the requirements. But then FPA does have a caveat in there, says if it causes economic hardship on the developer, which
This is their variance request.
Yes, on the hydrants.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably didn't even go down that road yet because they're hoping for the variance. Did y'all look at the cost of what it might take to do the infrastructure for hydrants?
It's a lot more cost, yes.
Yeah, I mean, probably millions.
It appears to be twice as much.
I would agree. It's not cheap at all. Then I guess my next question would be, if the commissioners were to
So I'm guessing that if it's a 75, how many lots?
75,
75 lots, that it's gonna run $750,000 for the system they're talking about, and over 1.8 million for a system with fire hydrants and the system you're talking about.
I even judge would say probably higher than that, because in order to meet the volume that it require for fire flow, it's gonna require a bigger tank and bigger pumps than what their systems are designed for.
So if I lived in a subdivision and my subdivision had fire hydrants, what does that do for our insurance?
It does allow for the home to probably be insured by twice as many companies than normally. A lot of times, Chief Leach is back there, we get insurance companies call, ask where the nearest fire hydrant is. There's a handful of insurance companies that will not insure a home that is not near a hydrant. So they do take that risk of their homeowners having to search for viable insurance options, not having hydrants.
So it'd be a benefit to all the people that bought it.
It could, yes, it could be a benefit to them on an insurance level.
The last two structure fires I've been on, one was with fire hydrant, one was without fire hydrant. The one without fire hydrants, me and Mr. Leach were on until you got there. Do you remember how many tenders it took to fight that one mobile home fire?
I mean, there was, I think, five fire departments there.
Do you remember what agencies there were?
Johnson City, Round Mountain, Blanco, Bulverde, and Candelia.
Canyon Lake was there, if I remember right.
Is Canyon Lake? Yeah, so six.
And then the one that was in Blanco with fire hydrants, how many did it take?
I think we had, well, at tenders, I don't think we even brought a tender. There was like 3 departments. I mean, yeah, there was a hydrant within like 300 feet of that mobile home.
So next question I have for you is on your, in the fire code, and you do fire inspections throughout the county.
That's correct.
What rule do you follow?
We adopted NFPA or Chapter 80 out of the IFC 2015 code. So Chapter 80 itself adopts certain NFPA standards to be followed.
So to your knowledge, have we adopted NFPA 1 that will?
It's in there. It's a life safety code. I mean, NFPA 1's like the gist of all in NFPA. Like it's the backbone of NFPA. So for commercial, yes, it's in there. Like that goes depending on the size of the building and what it's going to be used for. So hydrants and suppression systems as far as sprinklers and commercial buildings were required on certain builds. A multi-story, it's going to be a hotel, huge storage facilities, so things like that.
Okay, so then the last thing I have on this scenario is, have you ever been in the Bell Springs area of Hays County?
Not in a long time.
Yeah, hey, like Bell Springs and Fitzhugh, that vicinity back there in Ron probably knows, but there is fire hydrants out there and they're large acre tracts. So that's just right in our neighboring county, so.
Do you know how they're supplied?
I
Like, is it-
No, I just
water
drive by and I
system?
see the fire hydrants. I don't even know if they work. They might not work. It might be in the same.
Yeah, I mean, this, on what Judge says also, I can't recall any other subdivisions that have fire hydrants other than Stein Stage, which is Canyon Lake Water Supply, and then Rock and J, which is Rancho de Lago. And I'm not sure on how their infrastructure works for that, because they also supply water, residential water to Russ Ranch areas. I'm not sure on how they developed their hydrants for the backside, because that was done before our code was developed.
So and then the last, obviously the last, but not the last one, this
That's fine.
is the density, right? So I know that 3 acres is our lowest density if you have a public water system. To go lower than that, you gotta have a public sewage system as well, which would create a whole additional expense. So it's not just fire hydrants and other thing else, but things like that. So that's another little catch in the whole scenario. If going below 3 acres, you'd have to have a public sewage system as well. So anyway, Matt, do you have anything else?
No, I mean, I did research as well as Judge did. Kendall County, when we adopted this, did have it in their code just like it's written. It's no longer there. Not sure why. Current fire marshal's not sure either because it was changed before he took over. Past that, the only other ones I've ran into is Travis County, but their wording is different. So how they are worded might mean municipal water supply, not a rule. So one thing I can say is it's what's in the code now, and whether or not y'all choose to allow the variance will probably set the precedent for the change in future of other subdivisions in the code.
So let me ask you, in reference to the public water supply application to acreage and 3 acres, isn't it true that the reason the Commissioners Court did that even years and years ago is and isn't it true that that's the state standard, and it's not based on fire suppression, it's based on you don't want a well and a septic tank and a drain field too close together. And in their infinite wisdom, somebody decided 3 acres should be the minimum.
That's correct.
Yes?
Yes.
Has nothing to do with fire.
No, I mean, that's correct. I mean, I believe that was designed based on overflow from either system.
The state law is, I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's 1 acre if you have a well. And if you, well and septic, right. And if you have, you can go to a 1/2 acre and for an individual septic system, but it has to be on a central system.
But the state allows counties like Blanco County
To make it.
to go to 5 acres for a well and septic and 3 acres if you have public one or the other. Yes?
Yes.
So only if you was tied to a specific, like chapter 82 or something, if I remember right, that Blanco County was listed in many, many years ago. And that's where Kerman has the authority to do the inspections and everything else, if I remember right.
If y'all were required to do the hydrants, does that company across the street, would they be in charge of maintaining those hydrants? Is that how it is? And then, but once a tank's built, it's up to the HOA or whoever's in charge of the subdivision to maintain the suppression tank and the fittings.
No, it's up to the water company.
The water company still.
Anything else, Matt?
Can I ask a question real quick? Sure. Commissioner Weir, at Rock and J, how did their system hold up in a fire? Was there a fire
Maybe you
back
could
there?
answer that better than I could.
We
Initially not well, right?
Well, we've only had a small grass fire and a well house fire, and the trucks themselves were sufficient enough. We never had a pull. I guess we never had a pull from it. Usually in a rural setting, when there's a fire, not in the city, automatically dispatched a lot of tenders to come to a fire. That's just how it
Didn't they
goes.
try to draw from their ponds? It was tied into their ponds.
I think
for their
so.
golf course.
That was just based on a height. So certain trucks can draft, but once you get to a certain point, the prime to pull
Yeah.
water up it's a lot. Can burn
They had
up.
some pipe failures
Yeah.
or something. if I'm not mistaken.
But we've never, I mean, I can't tell you the time we've pulled from a hydrant, Rock and J.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never pulled from a hydrant other than. in the city.
Have you seen any hydrants in there?
Rock and J only on the south part of the development. So the front half, the original side, the north half is all 2-inch standpipes, which are not adequate, of course, to put out fire.
Is that right? And they're in front of their houses, they have a little 2-inch.
Yeah, and then in
standpipe.
the south part, they have full-size fire hydrants. We've never tested them or Chris hasn't, I haven't when I was with Chris, because that's not a city water supply, so we don't have technically the authority just to go.
So we really don't know if they'll handle the 20
don't.
minutes or an hour or whatever.
I do not know.
Wow.
Okay, 2 things. One is it's whether or not you want to enforce this, and next, honestly, it doesn't even matter if it's the city system or not. There still could be issues. The high school just built a brand new facility and the city water supply isn't enough to supply that building. They had to put tanks and booster pumps. So it's whether or not you just want to enforce the standard. There's too many what ifs for requirements, whether or not a system can provide it. So people can make it provide it. It's just what it's going to cost in a rural setting to do so.
So the city pumps would not support.
The city infrastructure cannot support a suppression system in the new fine arts system. So they had to put storage tanks and booster pumps inside of a city. supply suppression system.
So I make a motion to deny the request for relief.
So we're not even gonna talk about any other.
Well, that's, I figure let's just get that one off the table and we can go from there. It's just the variance, just not the whole thing, it's just to deny the variance.
Is there a second? Uh, Before I declare no second, I have a couple questions for you. Because I'm about to second this, maybe as much as I disagree with it. But it sounds like the county, including the county fire marshal, is turning in the direction of we want fire hydrants in subdivisions proposed like this.
If it, without talking economically and money, yes, that would be correct. And that was on
Without what?
involving money, because this comes down to money.
How's it gonna not involve money?
The answer would be yes, sir. I think Chief Leach would agree. From a firefighter standpoint, yes, hydrants would always be beneficial. That's kind of hard to argue.
Even if they don't provide the flow.
Well, they would have to. This, I mean, the way the NFPA statute is written, if their variance was declined, they would have to build a system that met that, or there could be other issues.
And have you studied the system that's currently on the table?
Their current water supply system, I've seen this, yes.
Will it provide the flow?
No, it will not. Yeah, it's under 50.
I'll second this motion. Sitting here seeing these gentlemen that fight safety of our community are saying.
Seconded by Commissioner Riley. Discussion. So let me try to understand this. You've studied their proposed water system. It will not provide the flow for fire hydrants.
That their current design will not meet the requirements of in a PA1, that's correct. And that's what their engineer said as well. Their current design will not meet the standard.
If we deny this variance, then they'll have to redo their water system.
The commissioners denied it, they would have to go back to the drawing board. And then that whole set of plans would have to be submitted to the fire marshal's office, because now it's involved in a whole hydrant subdivision, as it states in the code. If you accept their variance and they proceed forward with their storage tank in the location that's, I think, Commissioner Leisman just pulled up, which is in the submission now.
Now, Rock and J has their own wastewater plant,
That's correct.
and that's why they can do less than 1 acre.
They have their own sewage treatment facility.
So one option would be, if the developer is denied here, is to go back and turn it into small acre tracts and put in a wastewater plant. And then to design a system that will pass your fire hydrant requirement.
That would be correct. If they went that route.
All right. So, anything else? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Oh, so wish there was 5 people now.
I just noticed Mr. Baker's not here.
The motion passes 2-1. I'm going to abstain. The variance is denied.
Lead me to my next question. Do you want to come back with a proposed water system that will support the fire hydrants? Or do you want to increase the lot sizes to 5 acres?
We still believe that, that we're not required to have fire hydrants per the law. So, I don't know, I guess we'll have to consult with our attorneys on that.
Okay.
You know,
Okay, so with that being said, do we want to proceed with everything else that was on the plat?
yes.
That we want to talk about?
Yes.
All right.
It's going to take a 5-minute recess.
I read it.
Okay.
And I'm all right with the language, I just want it clear on the record that it's 15 feet from the edge of the roadway, not the middle of the road.
It's from the property boundary back, it's the additional 15 feet.
We're giving
It's
the
from our
county
property
more.
boundary, which is not in the road, it's where the fence is built, Chris. Remember when we talked, you thought it might have gone to the middle of the road, that's not the case, it's where the fence is built now. It's an additional 15 feet back from there, so it's really more than the county needs. I have the measurements by lot.
So can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You keep saying from your property line. I think we had the same discussion yesterday. Who owns the property up to your property line?
You're talking about the right of way,
I guess y'all do.
the county.
Are you saying that you think the county has a deed, is it not a right of way, owns the land, it's a deeded?
I'm saying the survey that we have, the survey shows the property line where the fence line is located right now, and we do not own the road.
So that tells me, if we don't, that the landowner across the street owns the road.
I have no idea.
When they were doing the survey, it doesn't show who the owner is on the other side of the fence. I mean, a lot of times they list the owners all the way around the perimeter.
Show it on the plat.
So here's a picture. There's a picture of the road and there's their property pin, and that's at the intersection of Lincoln Smith and Old Marble Falls Road.
I don't see the property. Leaseman is indicating that your property line is about outside the fence.
In certain locations, it might be.
I just took a picture of the property pin right there at the intersection of Lincoln Smith.
Which doesn't answer my question of from the pin going the other direction across the grass, across the pavement to the other side. Is that part of the other landowners? Who
Yeah.
owns that?
When we do these plats and stuff, we have to, when we follow roads, we have to show the property owners around the property, but not the road itself and across the road. We don't have to do that. It's not part of the requirements.
But you can
unless-
only give what you have. So
Yeah, but
you're saying you're giving an easement to the county from the pin.
Back onto our
Fifteen-
property.
onto our property,
15 feet back onto, past the fence, you're gonna move the fence.
correct?
Back onto your property.
Correct.
And that's all you can give, according to you.
Well, we're given more than what, that,
No, I'm not saying, I'm not arguing more, I'm saying, from the other side of that pen, typically, so many times, I think the norm is, not always, but the norm is, people own halfway up, halfway on the road. Not always, but a lot of times. And that's not the case here, apparently, is what you're saying.
No, sir.
That you don't own any of the land on the
Correct.
road.
Correct.
So all you can give us is from the pin backwards, inwards.
well, per the regs, or when we first met with Chris, he said that we need to move our fence back 30 foot from the center line of the road. So if you move in this area, it might be moved back 3 foot.
Here's the measurements right here.
Over upstream, it might be 10 foot. Okay, so in reality, we might need to give the county 3 foot here. We might give the county 8 foot, 5 foot, down to 2 foot, depending on where that 30 foot is from the center line. We're stating that we're going to go ahead and give 15 foot from the property pin. So it's just uniform throughout. Does that make sense?
Yes, as long as the property pin makes it enough so that the overall right of way for Blanco County is 60 feet.
It's more than that, but yes,
It's gonna
sir.
be 60 plus 15.
So my question is, so we're dedicating that to the county on the plat. What's the probability of that road getting access from property owners going down through there to get a dedication like what we're doing for future improvements. I've never seen that happen. I mean,
Say that one more time.
well, when we first did Summit Springs, remember? And we had, the fence was right almost on the pavement. And I asked you, is there any way we could do that? Miss Evelyn moved her fence back. And you said, no, she's not doing it. And she, boom, she put up her fence and now you drive down an alleyway, it's probably 40 foot. So,
Where you're, and where this property is, we're referring to this property, a lot of, on Old Montauk Road, there's no issue. At the very down corner down there by Lincoln Smith, that's where it gets tight, and then all of Lincoln Smith gets tight. So that's the bigger issues.
you'll have to go, you'll go to those property owners and say, hey, you need to.
No, you said you're gonna move the fence back, so we're gonna go ahead and relocate and move our ditch, get our shoulders right, and get our ditch right.
Yeah, but that's not all the way down the road though. That's not.
I can only go to what I get, once I get to that next property, I get that fence post right there on the corner.
What I'm saying is you're not gonna go to different property owners down through there and say, hey, I need 15 foot, or I need 10 foot, or whatever.
Well, I'm afraid that we're probably gonna have to, because once you get further down that road, it gets narrow. And you drop off that hill, before you get to that low point, it gets narrow.
Okay.
So we're gonna have to do something, especially if I.
But you agree that given the 15 foot is more than adequate? Okay,
But I just wanted to make sure that it was clear, Ron wanted to make sure it's clear on the plat.
sure.
That was his big concern, and I'm just trying to go along with it.
Okay.
So we're good there?
I mean, I guess some of the question is dedication versus. If it's still an easement, someone else has an accident, like say that. It's still on that lot of. It's fully dedicated to the county. It's not in them. They hold the county. That's what I've seen. That, and it's just in. It's moving over to 15 feet. And that's where
Does Tex dot own all of 281? Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do not.
probably don't.
In fact, I know for certain they do not, because I know a landowner that owns a piece of it under. And as far as I know, the zoo, where there have been many bad accidents, and all those roads up and down the line, the landowner was never sued for owning the land under the Tex dot easement. So I have reservations about your concept, actually.
We've got quite a few roads in the county that a property owner owns all the way under the road to the other side past the easement, and then half and half. But we went in 06, I believe, and did a prescriptive easement, sent it out to all the property owners. And so from the center line of the road, we have a prescriptive easement, a 60-foot wide, which is 30 foot on each side of the center line. But if they gave 15 feet on the other side of that, the county might own that, but we still have that easement. It doesn't change the easement because they added 15 feet to it. It's still a 60-foot right of way with a 30-foot center line.
It's the same thing we did at Red Oak Mountain with Commissioner Weir in 2019.
Yeah, right.
And the plat note hasn't changed.
Y'all owned all on both sides of the road. And
So,
yeah.
But Ron, I guess as long as our legal is fine with the wording on that plat, then we're just gonna move on. Okay? What's next on your list?
Then I guess like two on this one, I think that, we've asked for additional 15-foot like corner clip up there at the intersection a little bit further.
it's on the plat.
Which
Ron.
they did that, and that was on page 2 or 3.
So.
Yeah, page 3, that 30-foot radius right away, easement center. That's done.
So I think as far as in that. What the other would be is, I think you mentioned that he was gonna end up moving the fence back to this edge easement. That was the other concern.
Yeah, we discussed that, but that was never an issue. We always said we'd move it back to the 15 foot.
working in that easement, getting property owners upset because of the way I own this here, like that's an easement, but we're signing that.
The fence will be up and they'll, when they buy it, they know what land they're getting. The property pins are specifically marked. They know where the property's at. We've never had any issues with that.
So if, like say, the county goes in there and grades that, the property bins are going to be knocked out. If they ditch for it or whatever, easement is a county to be responsible for resetting those pins.
And there's a lot of hypotheticals, good gracious. Yeah, well, you know the answer to that? I mean, yeah, I mean, there's
Well,
like.
I mean, we know what the roadway looks like on Lincoln Smith. It's right up against the property line, the fence line currently is right up against the road. So once,
It's not that bad, Chris.
Really?
I got measurements of I got measurements right over here. I know you got your phone.
And I've been there, I lived there a long time.
We did center line of the road back.
No, I'm totally agreeing with you there. I'm saying, but what Ron's trying to get across is the existing property pins that y'all just surveyed, and y'all put those property pins in there. Once I take that, y'all are gonna move the fence line back, which is great. I'm gonna move that ditch line back off the road some more. So there's a lot of work that I'm gonna have to do in that scenario. And I'm gonna tear up the survey pins.
So is that the only
And-
area you're talking about is the Lincoln Smith mainly, that area?
That's the majority of the work.
We'll agree to go back and put the pins in.
Yeah, there's a little bit
There you
right there at the corner of Lincoln Smith and Old Marble Falls.
We'll repin that, no problem.
All right. What's next?
As far as I guess on the plat, I think that covers all the other issues. There's some that.
So what about, you wanna talk about lot 57? And I'm just gonna assume, we're just assuming that you're gonna put in the fire hydrants, just for talking purposes. So lot 57 is 3.8 acres.
In that, like I say, there's also that.
And then they have, if you can see there, there's your the wells, well number 3 you're gonna be using, which is an easement, and those wells will be fenced off. The question I have for the court is, will that be a concern for lot 57 septic?
No, you got almost two, sorry.
No, because it's not a property line, it's an easement. Right.
So just because they have an easement and those 2 wells there will be providing water for the entire subdivision, that drops that lot 57. If you take the easement out of it, it drops it down to like 1.8.
Yeah, and if you take out the.
For that lot.
Yeah, so is that gonna create an issue doing a septic?
That's
Still over 3 acre lot. Just because you can't put your septic back in the sanitary control, is that what you're talking about? When you got an acre and a half to build your house and put your septic on, or acre and 3/4?
You still have the same setbacks that we require, you're good, right?
And maybe it's not a conventional, maybe they put in aerobic, so it's up closer to the house. It all depends on what they get approved for.
Okay, so are you good with that? As long as the septic inspector signs off on it?
It's the same setback.
Aware that he's got a small buildable area. Fire beware.
Okay. What's next on this?
As far as that.
Well, while we're talking about easements, where are you, in this plat, it kind of shows the water line's gonna be on the inside of the fence line, is that? So it'll be inside that.
Inside the property boundary, well, and now.
Not in the easement, it's gonna be inside the fence,
No,
so
we're
I
gonna
wouldn't have to worry about driving a sign through your water line.
We'll move the water, when we move the fence back, the water line will go inside the fence on our side, so.
Okay.
So the water line will now not be in that 15.
Correct. It'll be inside, it'll be on our side of the fence.
Okay.
We see outside the fence.
Inside.
Inside the fence. It'll be inside their property.
You know what I'm asking is a point, just as a legal interest. So you'll be getting an easement from each purchaser of a lot that your water line goes through.
We'll
We
dedicate
have it
that prior
It'll
to,
be platted.
yeah.
That's how it would be deeded. And so the water line will be inside the fence and on the landowner's side.
Do y'all do a perimeter easement all the way around each lot?
Side
So that's
lots,
pretty common
rear.
anyway.
We got-
It's normal.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's kind of combined in the restrictions. It's a UE, drainage, and
PEC, I
Setback.
remember.
Okay, Ron, what's next?
I guess next kind of item was referencing, this under item 300-140. Yes, to the state.
So as we talked, one of my concerns is the low water crossings. So we have two low water crossings in that area. One of which is on the far end of Old Marble Falls Road, which I've had multiple vehicles get washed off right there. And so in our rules and regulations under 300.140, it says the developer of the proposed subdivision with no direct access to the state highway shall be required to enter into an agreement with the county, providing that the developer will pay all or part of the cost to improve and or expand the county road that provides access from the subdivision to the state highway.
And we sat there on the road with you and I asked you about that. And you said you were gonna get with Ron and figure out and do what tests and stuff that you need to do. That was 2 months ago. And we haven't heard a peep about that.
So we have an email from, who's Marcus? Marcus, is it $1,800 a lot is what you're willing to pay?
That was never the run with, I don't know. He said that.
So that's.
So we would like to see, where's the report? Where's the floodplain study? Where's the TIA that you guys done, all the design of all that stuff? I mean, that's.
Well, it's all to be determined because once we move forward with this project, we'll have to hire an engineer to engineer the low water crossing.
So if you only had, if we were gonna get an approval today, what would have been your answer?
The answer of how much is what it's gonna cost me, about 200,000 probably.
For what?
For a low water crossing, an improvement to that low water
And
crossing.
and you expect the developer to pay what?
Well, y'all proposed 1,800.
We did
It's the
not.
email that I have.
No, that was given by Ron to him on a project out in Caldwell, is that correct? Out in Caldwell, which the soils and everything, that's a totally different part of Texas.
Okay, so that's the question that we have in front of us. The development's bringing in 76 new homes. We have a known hazard. What is the developer's responsibility for that known hazard?
How did y'all come to that conclusion, Ron, on the other project you were talking about? How did you determine that?
That was what, like I said, that's what Caldwell County had to do.
It was just a number they came up with?
Yeah, I think that could have range something like 16,
What about as a percentage of a project in Caldwell or elsewhere?
I mean, I would think that would be, depending on what the road condition and such would be. Probably use a number, I guess, talk like per foot or,
Well, what I was asking is a percentage of total cost. I thought I heard somebody bandy around that the total cost was gonna be a couple $100,000.
That's the first I've heard of that.
And if that's so, $1,800 a lot means that you're asking the developer to pay over 2/3 of the cost. And I'm just asking, is that the standard? Is 2/3? Or is a percentage of the project the standard, or just that there's somebody charged $1,800 in Caldwell?
like I said, I just use that number, what I've seen in that area.
Is it proportional to what the road costs to build? Are they responsible to 100% of it, or are they responsible for a percentage of it?
That was what they were asking the developer to pay.
100% of
That
of the $1,800. I got you.
I have a question or a statement. 232.110 of the government code states that the cost may not exceed the required amount of infrastructure improvements that are roughly proportionate to the proposed development approved by a professional engineer who holds a license in occupations code. So the next line talks about the county's determination must be within 30 days following the submission of the developer's application for determination. The developer may appeal the determination of the Commissioner's Court to the county or district clerk of the county in which the development project is located within 30 days. So once the plat was accepted, you had 30 days to get your design work, your flood study, all your reports, the quotes, your engineer's estimates, environmental stuff, all that complete to be able to ask us for those type of funds.
Doesn't sound like a question.
Sorry.
He said it's a statement.
So the answer is there hasn't been any.
Well, so I talked to an engineer and, he just gave me a rough quote about 50,000. I've talked to Railroad Yard, the tanks, the Half Moon tanks, and he quoted me at 17,400, and we're probably gonna need about 4 of them. Now, all this is based on the engineering that will have to come from the engineer, because TxDOT's low water, or box culverts over there, there's 2 9x7 box culverts that come across that road, TxDOT's road, which come down that creek and come across that road. There's another creek that ties in from Trinity Oaks, which ties into that creek beyond TxDOT's roads. So that's gonna create more water flow into that scenario. So just basing it on the 4 of the 5x10 by 35-foot deals, that's another $60,000. Putting some wing walls on there and then the county repaving it. I'm just coming up to a rough number, about 173,000, is what it's gonna cost me, but that's just rough numbers.
And the TxDOT improvement that they just did on 962 East. That's the low water crossing right there. So you guys are more stringent than TxDOT, or does that water flow over that?
Water will flow over that, yes, sir.
Okay.
And what about the 2 most recent crossings you built in Blanco County, Chris, Sandy Road and Cypress Mill Road? What were those built like?
Those were built low water crossings. But the one I built on Hyatt Road, it cost me $270,000. Because that's where I have people get washed off and risk their lives. And I've had people get washed off in this low water crossing multiple times. So I'm not only risking their lives, I'm risking my first responders' lives to go in there and try to pull them out of their car. And I know your guys won't ever drive in high water, even though that water gauge shows 3.5 to 4 foot.
So let me ask you, did you say $167,000 is your count?
173,000.
And we want to collect $1,800 a lot, so.
That was what was proposed, that I seen in an email.
Okay. So.
Proposed by the
You keep
engineer.
saying it's a known.
By your engineer.
It's a known hazard that you've had people wash off. I'm pretty aware of it, because I used to drive it every day for 10 years, and it's an existing Blanco County asset, as Mr. Nepinville would call it. And people that live there and travel there have done so and are doing so. But we want to ask them to pay 80% of the improvement.
That's the
You
discussion.
don't know?
That's the discussion that's on the table right now.
What do
I
you
haven't
know?
proposed $1,800 a month.
You haven't?
I have it proposed in the email.
That's from your.
That's from
engineer,
your,
it's
that's from,
not-
that's from your guy. Ron admitted it just a second ago, Chris. I mean,
I just have one quick question, Chris, and that
We need
is,
to come up with a per lot fee for the county road and low water crossing improvement, possibly around $1,800 a lot, question mark. And this comes from your engineer.
that was a.
So I don't know what else you want me to say.
It's a
I
note from-
have a quick question, is that,
So you're the one that recommended that? Okay.
is that low water crossing, is that low water crossing right now, is it on the books to get worked on?
It will be on the book, yes, it's one of my to-dos.
Not will be, is it on the books?
No, it's not on the books for this year, it's already done my two for this year.
So it's
I've gotta
already.
get approved through a budget
If-
process. to
So
get
if
any
we
more
don't
approved.
do that project at all, we don't do that project, are you moving forward with that?
I will be at some point, yes.
Okay,
Where were you reading from?
It's 232, 110, local government code.
Let's look at that. This is just our rules and regulations.
so I guess another question I have is and we talked a little bit about it, Judge, you talked a little bit about it. Is it the opinion of the court that that regulation regarding fire hydrants for large acreage communities is going to stay in your regs? Or will that, you think that might change?
To be determined.
Because that will kill a lot of any type of more production development or whatever that you might have if someone
With
comes
public
in.
water systems.
Huh?
With public water systems.
To conserve water, yes. Yeah.
What is everybody?
I thought you were looking up the answer.
Well, no, I was just catching up with Mr. Keever, and I would say that it's one of those interesting, I'm just glancing at it, so I could be wrong, but it's one of those interesting statutes that that says we shall do it within 30 days, and without I haven't yet found a remedy, which leads me to think, if Kim's still here, which leads me to think that the remedy would be you having a judge mandamus the commissioner's court to, I guess, approve your transportation part, or that's what this is talking about. 110 is talking about transportation cost. Either approve it or make us produce what we're supposed to have produced in 30 days. The distinction I'm drawing is the statute's pretty clear that if we don't act on the application in 30 days, it's approved. But this part that has a 30-day component doesn't seem to have that same effect for whatever that's worth. It just means more complication, more legal fees, but anyway.
So what's next on your list? What's next on your list? That is?
Either they correct it or.
So with that being said, I make a motion to deny the application based on the lack of fire hydrants drawn in the plans.
Is there a second? Second. Commissioner Riley seconds. Discussion. At least we've had emergencies because I see some people have left. Does anybody know of another county that has the rule written like we have? Anybody?
What's wrong?
One, I'm sorry, specifically, I'll read it. Specifically, developments with TCEQ approval, approved public water systems shall be equipped with fire hydrants to comply with NFPA 1. That's the whole sentence, that's the whole rule. Does anybody know of another county that has that language just like that?
If I understood the fire marshal, that it was in Kendall's and it's been taken out.
Yeah, but that's not my question.
Okay.
No.
Well, if you don't know, you don't know, but I'm open, anybody in the room, anybody knows of that language in any county, Schleicher County, Hall County, any county. And I think the reason is because it's too broad and it's too subject to misinterpretation, and that will be the cause for my vote. So the motion is to deny the application. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. So the motion dies. It's a 2-2 motion. So it's tied, which means it does not pass. What's next? You know, normally we wouldn't, but I guess you're an awfully affected party in this, so if you have something brief you want to say.
My name is Elaine Swiss, and the ranch that we were talking about was mine at the time. And it's not that we're leaving. My husband has had serious health issues. My dad's 93, and we live both across the street and on both sides of Old Marble Falls Road. We have retained 200 acres. It's not like we're going anywhere. I personally chose Davy Roberts and his company because I cared how my ranch is developed. I picked the best guy to do it. I didn't want Greg Ranch. I did not want 1 acre lots or half acre lots. I wanted what I knew that man could produce for my neighbors, for my community, and would do a great job. And I have sat here through 2 meetings to listen to the discussion that you've had. I think today I heard that you're asking for a fire suppression system that cannot meet the requirements of putting out fires. I heard the fire marshal say that. I heard the judge ask that question. And the answer was, if you put in that system, it will not provide the kind of fire suppression that you're asking for. And therefore, what could be a beautiful development on a ranch that has been only in 3 different families over 200 years is now not going to happen the way it should happen. So it's not a bunch of irresponsible people here, and I was not an irresponsible owner when I sold that ranch to this man. I care. I live there. You live there. So I hope you think about that the next time someone comes in with a responsible plan to move this county forward. Because what I've heard here is not responsible, gentlemen.
What does that mean? So we have a 2-2, we could bring that back to the court, next commissioner's court or something? Whenever Commissioner Heath is here? Judge, what does that mean if it's, we have a 2-2?
Well, I was just discussing that with legal counsel, and even we don't agree, so I don't know. I would have said that since the motion to deny the application failed, that it passed, that no action was taken, and that it therefore would by statute automatically is approved. Ms. Ashby disagrees with that in legal interpretation. She thinks, especially given that there was a interim motion in there that passed on the fire hydrants. She thinks that, and she might be right now that I'm thinking it through, because the court can approve a plat with amendments or exceptions, I think, with county requirements. So I still don't know the answer, because I'm thinking out loud in front of a bunch of people, but it may, I don't know.
Do we have our attorney contact and speak with her? And figure this out. We appreciate that.
Yeah, because I don't think that any, while I didn't get to hear every word Ms. Swift said, but I can certainly hear the tone. I don't know that anybody's going to be persuaded to change their vote. So I think we're going to walk away from here with a 2-2 tie.
Okay, we'll talk with our attorney and be in touch.
Item 14 on your agenda is a burn ban. Well, we've got the map. I'm curious if you all are receiving as many complaints as I am that we're under a burn ban. Yeah, I'm sorry, that we're not. Excuse me, we're not. It does, yeah, it depends on which way we are. If we're under a burn ban, I get complaints that we are.
It's either way.
And now I'm getting complaints that we're not. And
Mr. Leach, how do you feel?
With the chance of rain and we're descending on a drought index, I believe fire marshal with me will be okay to leave us off the burn ban for the next year.
unless there's a motion for a burn ban, we'll move past item 14 to item 15.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Weir, discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.